Arizona, very much in the national spotlight after passing a controversial immigration reform law, orders police make what the law calls a reasonable attempt to check on the status of people about whom, what the law says, there may be a reasonable suspicion that they might be in the country illegally. Governor Jan Brewer of Arizona says the new law will protect Americans from what she called crime related to illegal immigration. But Mexican Americans and civil rights groups say the law is racist. Now, here with us today to discuss the political impact and the moral impact of this law, Michael Gerson, op-ed columnist for the Washington Post and a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, and CBSNews.com's Stephanie Condon. Welcome. And Stephanie, let's begin with you. The politics of this have gotten a lot of play in the last couple of days. What does it mean to Republicans particularly?
Well, it really puts Republicans in a hard spot. They have to prove to their conservative base that they are tough on immigration. At the same time, they risk alienating Hispanic voters who clearly feel offended by this law. And it's going to be a tough road to travel, especially during a midterm election year. Well,
Michael, as you point out in your column today in the Washington Post, it didn't work so well in California when it was tried there and drove the Republicans basically out of power in the state.
Yeah. No, I think there are a lot of similarities to Proposition 187, which denied benefits to illegal immigrants in California. The law was very, very popular at the time, passed with almost 60% of the vote. Pete Wilson gained a lot of political momentum because of it, but it was eventually overturned as unconstitutional. And it became toxic over time, alienated a lot of Latino voters, and drove the Republican Party in California into the wilderness. So the short-term gain did not result in a long-term benefit. I'm afraid that the situation in Arizona is going to be very, very similar.
Well, you know, Stephanie, let's talk a little bit. The White House has not pushed immigration reform, but now Senator Harry Reid, who's running for re-election in Nevada, has brought it up as a major issue in his campaign for re-election because he's in trouble. And a lot of people think this is kind of a cynical move. What do you think?
Well, you have to be cynical about every move in Congress. There definitely is some political motivation there. As you said, he's trailing behind the Republican candidates right now. And this would appeal to the large Latino base in Nevada. And that's part of the Democrat strategy for the midterm elections. Actually, half of first-time voters in 2008 who came out to support President Obama were either young or Hispanic or Black. So that's an important part of the Democratic base that they need to bring back. They need to rally those voters if they want to keep their losses to a minimum this year.
Well, but talk about cynical. Everybody in Washington believes, as a matter of revealed fact, that the immigration law will not come up in Congress before the election.
That's probably true. Harry Reid has acknowledged that the climate bill has a much better chance of moving forward this year. They've already written that bill, whereas there is no immigration legislation right now. The House is very hesitant to move on immigration, and they've already passed a climate bill, and that was a really hard vote for a lot of Democrats in the House to take, and they're not willing to take many hard votes like that if the Senate can't do the same. So it's all up to Reid.
So, Michael, that brings up the question that it may be politically cynical and that it also is morally questionable. You make the point that that you're at a moral crossroads, people are on with this law.
No, I think that's true. I mean, you have to admit that the provocation in Arizona is real. I mean, there's chaos on parts of the border. But the reaction, which is really to target a group of people, based at least in part on ethnicity, and then have them be in a situation where they have to prove their innocence to authority, is, I think, properly taken by the broader Hispanic community in the United States as a kind of profiling. Now, the law is so vague, it's one reason it may be unconstitutional, that you can argue it does this or it does that. But the reality is that there's a significant possibility for abuse in this law, at the very least.
Well, when the governor was asked at her Friday news conference, after she signed this law, how officers would know that somebody was reasonably suspicious, she couldn't answer.
No, that's absolutely true. The standard in the law, no one, including the sponsors of the law and the governor who signed it, will actually say what that means. What does a reasonable suspicion mean? Because most likely, it would seem like a stereotype and be a stereotype. And that's something that they don't want to do in public. They say that police are going to be trained, it'll be carefully applied, but they won't say what the standard is. And I think that's also another way that this has some legal exposure. I mean, the vagueness of the statute is very likely to invite legal challenge.
But you make a higher point this morning. You say that this puts people at a moral crossroads. Explain.
Yeah, I think I compare it to Proposition 187 the last time around. For many Republicans, it was really a choice, okay? Whether you take a politically expedient but divisive approach, like Pete Wilson, the governor of California, did, or you take the approach that people like George W. Bush took in Texas at the time, where he was courting Hispanics instead of alienating them, or people like Jack Kemp, who was a kind of voice of conscience for the Republican Party on these issues. And you find that those are the people that rose in stature over time, okay? Well, there was a fairly harsh historical and moral judgment on those who were engaged in a very divisive kind of politics. I think Arizona is going to be seen as that kind of moment.
So, wrapping it up, Stephanie, this becomes a political sort of tar baby to wrestle with, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It doesn't seem that the issue is going away as much as both parties probably wanted to. In fact, a handful of lawmakers in other states are saying they want to adopt laws similar to the Arizona law. We have a story up on the hot sheet at cbsnews.com right now looking at the other states that want to adopt those laws. So Republicans are really going to have to speak up on this, and the Congress will have to address it somehow sooner or later.
But probably later. Stephanie Condon of CBS.com, thanks very much. And to you, Michael Gerson, always a pleasure.
Great, thank you.